Hey everyone, it's Tammy Bux here, and this is another one of my Radiance Wellbeing video series where I showcase wonderful people from the Greater Vancouver Portland area wellness community. And so today we've got the fabulous Jocelyn Fitzgerald. She's an art therapist and she has this gorgeous space in the most beautiful, my favorite part of town, Officers Row, which is really close to downtown here in Vancouver. And I'll just hand over to Jocelyn for her to introduce herself and what she does.
Yes, thank you so much. I too, I think Officers Row in downtown Vancouver is one of the prettiest places to have an office space. So I am a marriage and family therapist, and I'm also an art therapist. I use art as a way to communicate. It's almost like having another language to communicate with symbols and metaphors, and imagery and colors and shapes. Really, art therapy is a pretty loose term. So people can come in and say like, oh, I don't do art. I'm not an artist. And I say, it really doesn't matter. We're all creative, and whatever you create will be unique and personal to you and have meaning to you. So I use art as a way for people to help communicate what maybe is going on beneath the surface. I kind of think of it as like this golden road into the unconscious, if people are willing to kind of look at it in that way. And even if it's hard, like I definitely understand that looking at a blank canvas or a blank sheet of paper can feel really intimidating and scary. And I like to talk about how that's kind of a metaphor for life, that when we start out on a new project and we don't know what's going to happen, that uncertainty is really scary and hard. And to have a space where we can explore that within the art and with a witness, me sitting and being with them while they kind of process through that experience, it usually reflects so beautifully with exactly what's going on in the outside world for them. So I find art to just be this great, fertile ground for discovery and exploration, and even the hard parts of life can come out, and it can all be really great information to work with in the therapy session.
Oh my goodness, that explanation. So I didn't really know what art therapy encompassed before I just heard how you explained it. I mean, I've looked it up online, Googled it or whatever, but as a practitioner and from all of your experience, I could just see it so vividly come to life, how you use those tools to get down under those layers of, we've got so many guards up and so much societal the kind of the constructs that we have, and we can often be afraid to like go there, go deep. And maybe talk therapy isn't for everybody, or is it not at a particular stage or place for them to feel comfortable really going into those more deeper recesses. And so that explanation makes me want to come into art therapy.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I can't even draw a straight line. I'm that kind of person. So it's very intimidating for me. It would be completely, I can talk till the cows come home.
Mm-hmm.
But I am just not a confident, person who could draw or create or whatever. So you kind of made it enticing.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. And for someone like you, I might say, like, I can even just look at you and see all your beautiful colors and textures. And I might think, like, oh, what would be fun and exciting for her? So maybe I would bring in like beautiful Japanese origami papers and say, like, let's create a collage out of this. I do think about clients and like what's going to get them excited about the process. And it is, because it is such a loose term, it can be glass mosaics, it can be clay. I've done cake projects where I have people decorate cakes to celebrate themselves. And most like teenagers that are kind of on the fence, or adults, when they see cake decorating supplies, they are excited. And like the little kid and then comes out and is like, yes, let's play and explore. So it's pretty fun and special and magical.
oh, it does sound magical. It really does. Oh, yes. I think it's something that is not heard of that often either. And it's probably a crying shame that it isn't something more mainstream. And
Yeah.
so do you have a particular mission I know you've got two parts of your business. You've got the marriage and family therapy, and then you've got this art therapy, and you probably can mix the two. But potentially, maybe let's just focus on the art therapy for today's discussion. Like, is there a particular mission that you have now that, you know, I'm not sure how long you've been in this field, and yeah, what you want
I
to
love that
achieve
question.
from it.
Yeah. A mission. I mean, I feel like I go into my art therapy sessions with such kind of an open and curious stance, and I am always so excited and surprised what comes out within the art. And I think people, I don't know if I come with a mission other than like hoping for people to connect to parts of themselves that maybe they haven't for in a long time, or haven't, parts that haven't been seen, that need a voice, that need to feel heard and supported. And I love working with people that are like, no, I don't ever want to do art with you. And then I'll introduce a project and they'll be like, oh, that was surprisingly really fun, and I want to do more. You know, that's really rewarding for me. And also I get a lot of like, oh, that was really relaxing. Like, just to sit in color for a few minutes, I felt really relaxed. And so, yeah, I guess maybe my mission is just to introduce to people that are maybe nervous about it, a new way for them to explore themselves, and hope that something rich will come out of that experience. Most people that come to me, I'm always shocked when somebody comes and they're like, I don't ever want to do art. And I'm like, well, I'm an art therapist. So what made you pick me? There must be a little part in you that's curious about this. I have this one exercise I love to do with clients where I call them smash paintings, and I have the client fold the paper in half before we paint anything on it. Then they open up the paper and then they ask the art a question. Like, I mean, it can be anything, like, what am I going to do with my future? Or I had a little girl not too long ago ask, why is outer space so beautiful? And then she used, or whoever's doing the art project will use puffy paint and just kind of squeeze paint around the paper. And then the smash part comes when you fold it together and then you open it, kind of like a Rorschach test where you see stuff in the ink blots. But here you're seeing it in your own art and your own creation. And people with, I mean, I almost want to say like 100% of the time, find some sort of interesting answer within the art that they weren't expecting. And stuff like that, it just pushes you to use your creativity. It pushes you to see a new perspective. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about art, is that we can get really rigid in our stances and our ideas and perspectives. And sometimes we need to just step back and look at things from different angles and see a new way of looking at a situation. I think art does a beautiful job for that too.
Oh, I'm loving this conversation. I can't tell you that, because, you know, it's something so different, and something that I've got family members who are incredibly keen art collectors and incredibly well-versed in, you know, in that realm, in that domain, and it just hasn't ever been a part of my experience. And so looking with a childlike wonder from this point of view, it just makes me feel like, first, you are living your purpose. The way that you explain it, and that kind of the way your face lights up when you talk about it, I can see that this is, if I may be so bold, you may be living your dream, like your dream job. I hope that that's
I
what
am.
you're
I
doing.
love it. I love it. Yeah, I really
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
And so one thing that I really did want to ask, so I've got a set of questions that I generally stick to and ask most people, because I think that you can get some really good answers. And one of the questions that I find that even I ask myself about, what are some of the most impactful lessons that you've learned from your clients? Because I know when I teach, goodness gracious, there's things that I learn from their interaction with me that I would never have learned just by sitting, you know, in a different, in an office or whatever, you know, working on a computer. Like, having that very intimate interaction some, you know, you've got one-on-one. I don't know if you do groups as well, but I do, you know, I do groups, I do some individuals, and there's just something when you get people in the room together and it's quite vulnerable and intimate, all sorts of things arise, but you can learn so much. And so I don't know, I've gotten two questions there, you know, do you do groups as well? And then what have you learned maybe from some of the best outcomes of your client interaction?
So I used to do a lot of groups with teens, and I have a teenager now, he's almost 13. And so I haven't been doing as many groups because I'm just not as available after school hours because of my son. But I do love them, and I think they're really, really powerful. And I used to, when I worked at a school years ago doing art therapy groups, I could not believe how it was just like I could kind of step back and the group would run itself. So often I might sprinkle in a question here and there, and then the kids would just give each other the most amazing, beautiful feedback, better than I could have ever thought of. And likewise with my clients, I am constantly in awe of them and their work and what I learn about myself and the vulnerability and how brave they are to show up and do the work. I guess I also am like, I've realized over the years, like, I don't ask them to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. So when I'm actively having a great meditation practice, I'll talk to them about meditation. When I'm doing my own therapy, well, I mean, I'm always kind of doing my own therapy. I think all therapists should probably have their own therapist and have mentors and people they can go to. I just think it's just, I think we're just meant to grow as people. And so continuing to grow and learn about yourself is so important. But every single day that I work with clients, I learn about myself. I mean, and I also learn about like art interventions, like things that I would never have thought of. I worked with this group of boys that were Eritreans. They were foster refugee kiddos, and I had a big art room, and I had a bunch of stuff out on a table. And one of them just one day started like picking up popsicle sticks and creating a little box. And I said, "Oh, what are you making?" You know, and he said, "This is my home." And because of him, every other boy that was in that group started making their home. And we created, for 3 months, we created these elaborate homes that represented their home from Eritrea. And then from Eritrea, they had been in Ethiopia in a refugee camp. And then from Ethiopia to Vancouver. So this home, they each created these incredible homes that represented all three parts in them. And I would never have thought of that on my own. And it ended up being one of the most beautiful art experiences that we had. And one of the boys was like, do you have like lights? I need battery lights. So I had these like little tea lights that were battery operated. And so then they all wanted lights. So I got a ton of tea lights at the Dollar Tree, and they hot glued them all over their houses. And it was at night in the winter. So we turned off the lights, and all their houses just lit up and were glowing. And it was just this beautiful moment of, you know, understanding the value of home, the importance of home, and assimilation, like having parts of your home here with you and how that never changes. And then for me to understand what home meant to them, I don't know if I would have understood it in such a deep way had the art not been a part of it. And had that one boy not started doing that art, I don't know if I would have thought to have them make homes. So I'm like, I just have to sometimes step back and let the art work, the client work. And I think I'm reminded of that a lot, that, you know, I'm just a guide on the side. Like I'm not there to lead them and tell them what to do. We have to just kind of trust the process and trust the art and the creativity and the flow.
Oh, what a beautiful story. Oh my goodness. It makes me think, because I'm such a visual person. I'm visual. I could talk a lot, but oops, my little earbuds fell out. I can talk a lot, but I can also I love the format of video. And I was just wondering, I know that there are some things that like client confidentiality or whatever, but do you have like a catalog of pictures or videos or anything of where the clients are willing to share something? Do you keep that? Is there any, can other people see it?
Yeah, well, like that story that I just shared with you is in the book. I just published a book in October on with a group of therapists, EMDR and art therapy, which is EMDR is a type of trauma work. And I was able to use a picture of one of the homes in that book. So there's a bunch of pictures in that book. And I actually got to go to Ethiopia and work in the refugee camp that they came from, and the art was so incredible, and what I saw in the art there was so amazing. So I incorporated a lot of pictures in the chapter there. But yeah, overall, like we were not allowed to put them on the computer, and I don't even think if we got permission, we're kind of supposed to put clients' art. And I think that's partly why I make a lot of art too, to share examples. So if you look at my, I think if you look at my website, you'll see a bunch of exercises that I've done with clients, but it's my art so that the confidentiality can still remain there. Yeah.
Okay, so it's like almost your art pieces are inspired by certain sessions or whatever
Yes,
it might be.
exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And this is another question that I do like to ask, because we are, and you know, the wellness space is so broad, like it encompasses many, many different facets. And so is there anything that surprised you on this journey of developing your wellness business? Something, you know, you may have had something in mind and it turned out differently, or something that surprised you in a good way along the way?
Oh, yeah, I think I'm surprised at how much I'm always like learning and changing, and I didn't really realize that. I thought like 10 years in I'd be like, "Oh, I know what I'm doing. Like I've got this." And I am always just learning and changing and modifying things. Um I didn't think it would be quite as rigorous as it is in that regard. And even within the art practice, like I'm always picking up new media and trying new things. I think if I get stagnant, then my work with clients might feel stagnant too. So I'm always really wanting to just explore. And it's so fun when I learn a new medium and, can bring that into the session.
Oh, great. Yeah, I just I hear you there, because I'm always learning. I'm always a student, and
Yeah.
this from day to day things change so much. And then there's some foundations, and foundations are fabulous, and they keep us, you know, in a certain. They give us that beautiful grounding, and that the basis of which then we can start to experiment and try different techniques or different kind of interventions or whatever they may be. But it keeps the whole practice very fresh, and again piques the curiosity. You know, as you are the practitioner, you want to also have something a little different that you can add to your toolkit or whatever. So yeah, that's a really great answer for that
Yeah.
question. I think it's really good.
Yeah.
Another question about do you feel a difference? Can you feel it in your own well-being since you embarked on this journey? And how long have you been doing it? What were the phases that, like, you know, your study, and then how did it morph into what it is today? But can you noticeably see a difference in your own well-being through this, or not necessarily? It's not something that really impacted it.
Yeah. I think I really crave, after doing this work for so long, I really crave deep, intimate connection with people. And I feel it's harder for me to like go to a cocktail party and just make small talk. Like I really, I really want to have deep, meaningful conversations. And I love hearing people's stories. So I like that has been such a fun thing that I didn't really realize I would enjoy as much as I do. I think my ability to connect maybe quicker has improved over the years. I think maybe early on in my career. So you go to grad school, you're in school for 3 years, and then you have an internship where you do several thousand hours. I think it's 2,000 hours where you're supervised, and then you sit for licensure, and then you're licensed. And then, you know, every couple of years you continue to do continuing education, and that's the course, that's how it goes. But you know, every couple of years you do continuing education. I go like well above and beyond in that, because I'm always so excited about all the new developments in the field, and that has helped me to continue to be, I think, a good therapist and continue to grow. I think I've also, over the years, one thing that's helped me is I think I still struggle with this at times, as being a people pleaser and wanting people to like me. And as I've progressed in my career and my age, I think I've become more bold in telling people, like, I'm not the right person for you. This is not a fit. Like, let's find you somebody that's a really good fit. Or this is an area where I think you really need to work and grow, and I'm not seeing that. What can we do to create a change here? Because when I start to feel like we're not making movement, we're not making changes, and it's just very stagnant, it's hard for me to be present and to do good work. So I think I've gotten less, in some ways more patient, and then in other ways less patient, where I just tell it like it is more, which is actually good for me in my real life too, my outside of my work life.
Okay, great. That's lovely for you to reflect back on that. And I'm interested in, this is such a unique kind of niche area. Was there something that sparked your interest to make you choose this? Like, is there like a story you can tell us that how you were first exposed to it, and then how you fell in love with it, or whatever?
Yeah, definitely. I went to school at UC Santa Barbara in California, and I was teaching these autistic men how to paint. One of them was not verbal, so he would just paint. But when we would paint, he would look at me. There was something kind of interesting that would happen when we were doing art together. And I saw a movie in college called The Living Museum, and it was all about an art therapist. He was working in Rochester, New York. He had patients that were schizophrenic, and they would create this incredible art. And he took the show on the road, and they traveled. And I was like, this documentary just blew me away, that you could help people and create art with people. And I was like, oh, that's exactly what I want to do. Like, I love service. I love serving people, but I also love art and creativity. And I didn't even realize that you could combine the two. Like you said, still not a lot of people know what art therapy is. It's still kind of a growing field. And then I went to Italy. I worked as a tour guide, and I remember seeing this mom, and she was giving a tour to her daughter who was blind, and she was just describing everything to her in this beautiful, loving way. And I was like, oh, I'm ready. I want to go home. I want to help people, and I want to bring creativity to people. And so not long after that, I came back and went to grad school, and then I got my start working in a school with teens. And I just loved, being in a school system and having other people around to collaborate with. And I love working with teenagers and all that they're going through, and creating independence and figuring out who they are. And that just came out so easily for them within the art process. So it was just a good fit for me from the start.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love that story about, I've heard about these different interventions where you put someone in a different space in their mind or in what they're used to doing, and suddenly they change. So when you said that autistic man, because he wouldn't, he's not verbal, he wouldn't make eye contact, and then suddenly something unleashed in him when that creativity was flowing from his hands, and he was creating something, and then he had the wherewithal to look into your eyes. That must have been such a special moment, like something miraculous.
It really was. Yeah.
And And I wonder, it just reminds me of, I saw a little clip on social media the other day or something. There was this maybe 90-year-old woman who had Alzheimer's or something, and then they put these earphones on her playing the music from Swan Lake, and she had been a prima ballerina, and as soon as she heard the music, she suddenly started doing these movements from the choreography movements from the dance, and
Wow.
that music unlocked that part of her brain, and it was the muscle memory that was just moving
Mm-hmm.
on of its own accord. And how wonderful to be able to unlock this other part of the brain that in normal reality of the just the normal day-to-day grind, it doesn't come out. But when you spark that creativity, things suddenly change.
I know, it's amazing. Yeah.
Beautiful story.
We're studying
Well,
more and more with art and neuroscience. Like there's
yeah.
actually people that are studying with fMRIs. So they hook up this band to your brain and then they have you do art. And they can start to see things like blood flow to different parts of the brain with doing art. And yes, even with Alzheimer's, there's parts of the brain that are last to be affected by the disease. And those are the creative parts of the brain often. So bringing in music or art is just such a great tool to work with. Yeah.
It's so exciting. I mean, the possibilities are almost endless when
I
you bring in, actually, I wonder whether you know anything about this at all, even when you bring in creativity in other healing environments. I know some hospitals, like they'll have a piano player there or something, something that's a little different to help that healing environment, because we're not just blood and bone, right? And
Right.
I think we don't just heal as a physical entity. There are other parts of us that can be appealed to help that healing process. Even physical injury can be healed by someone being able to relax, and their tissues being able to relax, and the lymph being able to
Mhm.
flow, and the
Mhm.
those kind of things. And then the neural pathways in the brain, that are different neural pathways that are activated, because I know I've done a lot of work about meditation and breath work and those kind of things that help you change your brain state or whatever. And I'm interested about how we could potentially bring creativity, artistic creativity, into the mainstream to help for other healing modalities apart from therapy, like
Right.
mental therapy.
Right. No, I agree. I think neuroplasticity is one of the coolest discoveries of our time. Like the fact that our brains can still change and grow, after childhood, well after adolescence, like for the rest of our lives, right? We can change our brains. And yeah, and creativity and flow and movement and meditation, I just think it's such a wonderful thing for people to understand. And it's so hopeful, for people that suffer from different diseases, whether they're physical or mental health issues. I mean, it's so important to know there's hope and you can change and things can get better. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I wonder if it's the same with your clients and my clients, when the moment that they learn how to breathe and move, and
Mm.
how to start to still the mind, and still and come into a little bit more balance in the nervous system, they suddenly feel so empowered, or so their whole outlook changes in that one class. I'm not saying that their whole life will change, but just for that moment, after that intervention, after that experience. Because what I do is I get people to note down what they're feeling emotionally, physically, mentally, their energy, before we start the class and after. And I've actually, in my last series of classes, they're writing it down, which is a very important thing, so that they can bring their mind onto the page.
Mm.
And people are just like, I can't believe how I walked in here with pain, and just through a little bit of movement, because I don't do a lot of vigorous movement, but the breath work, the visualization, the meditation, the flowing movement, and being in community as well, moving in community and having that energy, they feel a difference at the end. And I'm wondering, you kind of mentioned that people are like, oh, they come in and I've done this once, I love it, I'll do it again. But do you often get that reflection from people even after they've just done one session, or does it improve after a few sessions, that self-reflection of how much better they're feeling? Because I think if you walk into a therapy session, maybe once, they may feel something different or not, but do you get a lot of feedback like that how different they feel at the end?
I do ask often, yeah, what are you noticing now? What are you going to take with you after this session? Yeah, and I do think people really appreciate having a moment to slow down. And I think art and mindfulness just go so well together. Probably like what you're doing too, where you actually noticing like, what does it feel like to watch the paint slide across the paper? What are you noticing? What are you noticing with your breath when you do strokes that are faster? What do you notice? Like sometimes we'll play music and create art to music. And just slowing down and noticing your body and noticing, like you do so beautifully, your thoughts and your feelings. You can really pretty quickly start to see a change in your energy and your nervous system when you stop and pay attention and do something calming like art or movement, slower, with mindfully, with intention. Yeah. I know. And the
Yes.
thing I love about what both of us do is that we're like, here's your gift. Now you take it and run with it. Like, you don't need us, right? You have art anytime. You have your body. You can move anytime. And I think that's the best way for me to do therapy. It's just like, because most people only get therapy for an hour a week, and you have all the rest of this time that you need to be doing your work still, because it doesn't work well with just 1 hour a week, right? Like, you're right. Like sometimes you might go to a therapy session. If it's a heavy therapy session, you might not feel great afterwards if you're talking about hard things. But yeah, I try to really kind of bookend my sessions with a creative component. Like, let's draw for a few minutes or do a writing exercise in the beginning. And then at the end, let's close with even just gentle scribbles. Like just doing figure eights on the paper can feel so calming to your body. Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible. I think that also makes me think of, so in the West, we're just, for some reason, it's just unfortunate that the pace of life has become so fast moving. We're always like overwhelmed and multitasking and hypervigilant and overstimulated. It's kind of become the norm. And for those of us who are lucky enough to have known the pre-tech era of just whiling away the hours, like sitting on a branch of a tree and just having the sun on your face, and that was like the coolest thing, But in this very fast-paced world we're living, it's almost rewarded too much or expected too much. And if you look back at Indigenous cultures or First Nations people, they had a lot more of this slow, reflective, artistic creation, body movement, vocalization, community. It was very nurturing. It was dog eat dog, because like they were fighting for their survival back in the day, right? But there was a lot to be said about, connecting to nature, moving with the seasons, with the circadian rhythms of the day, with the how times change through your own life, the rituals of becoming a man or becoming a woman, of childbirth, of marriage, of death. All of these things were actually had rituals around them and celebrated in a very in a way that did nurture and nourish what every facet of a human being is about, and not doing things in isolation, doing things in a group and with that connection. And so I think bringing these things into this fast-paced life, like doing your creativity and art therapy with your patients, the way that I am working with people, exactly what you said. I said, if I make myself redundant, if you don't need me anymore, I've done my job, you
Mhm.
can choose to continue to work with me and be part of what I offer, but you don't need me anymore. And I never wanted you to need me. I wanted to be that vessel of
Mhm.
trans. I actually transfer um, ancient Eastern wisdom that's been around for millennia through the yoga, the qigong, the pranayama, all of these things, through that beautiful mindfulness and concentration that we do in our meditation. And I'm just like a post box. It's come to me, and I'm sending that out to you for then you to make your own, for you to practice at home, and have those tools so that you can start to flourish in your life no matter what the setbacks are. I find that, and one of my teachers, Mark Tanaka, he always said, and we were, during the pandemic, he said to us, you've got to keep on doing these practices as often as you can, because you need to build the resilience for the hard times. So when you
Mhm.
can't, you go as a preventative, that's going to stand you in much greater stead of when the hard times come, when the challenges come, when that grief, that loss, that illness, that disappointment, that trauma comes to you. Build up your reserves before, and then continue to have
Mhm.
deeper interventions when they come, but you've at least got that baseline. And so, do you
Mhm.
only ever see people after the fact? Like, I wonder, it's probably not even a thing to do art therapy as a resilience tool before you get into like a lot of mess. It's not thought of as a preventative, but it could be
It could be. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like in schools or something. Like maybe
Oh,
don't,
yeah. Well, I
maybe
know.
when,
Oh, go
yeah, when
ahead.
you're joining the art and the therapy together. But like, did you ever feel like when you did it in the school, was it kind of building that resilience for people?
Oh,
Or
definitely. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I definitely think like all the skills and tools when you're in a crisis mode, they're going to be really hard to access. So yeah, building that up before the crisis moment and building up the ability to calm your nervous system is like, I mean, that's like a ton of what I teach my clients is how to regulate. I talk a lot about, I don't know if you're familiar with the window of tolerance, but that concept of, we have a middle window, which is where we want to be. And then the upper window is the hyper arousal, which is like anxiety and anger. And then the bottom window is dissociation or hypo arousal, where we check out. And I talk about how we really want to widen that middle zone, because if we don't, we're just constantly popping out of those two windows. We're going up into the hyperarousal and our nervous system flares up and we're in fight or flight, or we check out, we go down into dissociation and we collapse inward. And so giving them art tools, like if you're starting to feel stressed, can you just color a mandala? Can you create a mandala and color it in for 10 minutes? Maybe you only have 5 minutes. Just color for 5 minutes and breathe and color and just see what colors you pick. Notice how it feels. If you choose a pen or pencil, what you notice. Um, yeah, because all of that is teaching skills and regulating emotions, right? And that's like you said, we're in this such a fast-paced environment right now. It's so easy for us to be in hyperarousal. A lot of kids, teens, adults all day long are in hyperarousal and they're constantly going. And when they feel calm, it's like, this is not normal. This is weird. I want my adrenaline. So kind of teaching them how it's okay to slow down and to breathe into your body and notice your body. Because I think so many people are cut off, from their necks down. They don't notice what they're feeling.
That's
Yeah.
so true. That's so true. And like the kind of the buzzword these days is we're like, there's gut intuition, right? And
Yeah.
there's another brain in the gut. And
Yes.
in Western society, we don't think about it. We don't even want to talk about, bowel movements or how's your digestive system going or
Right.
things like that. Whereas if you talk about Eastern medicine or these types of traditions, Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, the first thing they do is they want to know how many times a day do you go for number two, or what's your tongue looking like, or
Uh-huh.
what's happening in your intestines.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
it's interesting about a lot of the West. We live up, as you said, from the neck up. We don't
Mhm.
even want to go into our heart. It's too scary.
I
Sometimes
know.
it's too scary to feel that heart pumping and beating and giving us signals about its own intelligence.
Right.
The heart intelligence, the gut intelligence, and the brain intelligence. There's three areas that we could be tapping into and being quiet and still and just listening in and feeling into those parts of the body
Yeah.
and see if we get any signals, but we want to shut them out. Oh my goodness, this has been such an amazing conversation. First of all, I'm so happy to have met you. I think we met at the wellness retreat in
Mhm.
that Emily and Stacey put on, the new Halsa House
Yes.
girls.
Oh, it's so
And
lovely.
that was such a wonderful place. I met
Mhm.
so many wonderful people, and we've since kind of connected on Instagram. And so, if you could let people know if they wanted to find out more about what you do and how to contact you,
Sure.
maybe you want to give your Instagram handle, your website, and I'll put it down in the notes here when I post this on
Of
YouTube.
course. Yeah. So my website is just my name, jocelynfitzgerald.com. And I think my Instagram account is, oh, I don't know. I think it's just Jocelyn Fitzgerald Art Therapy.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's Jocelyn Art
oh,
Therapy.
Jocelyn_art_therapy.
Perfect, perfect. And
Yes.
I'll link those down at the bottom.
Thank you so much. This
Oh,
was
what a
fun.
beautiful, beautiful, yes, so much fun, so informative. And like I just wish you so much success on your journey. And potentially, I will come back to you in the summertime because I would love to do a collaboration with you. We've
I would
discussed
too.
this, and so we can maybe surprise people
Yeah,
about what we're going to offer, something
I would.
fun and vibrant, and just
Oh,
celebrating being outdoors under the sunshine in the greenery in that beautiful space that where you outside where you work. And
yes.
so everyone stay tuned. Tammy and Jocelyn will be collaborating hopefully in the summer months once the weather turns better. So I appreciate it so much, Jocelyn. And thank you everybody for tuning in, and stay tuned for our next episode with one of these wonderful Vancouver Portland wellness community members. And we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye. Bye.